Yeah, my name is Michael Melerine. I'm a resident of Shreveport. My wife, Stacy, and her son, Foster. I'm a candidate for BESE District 4.
In your own terms, how would you define the role of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education? What are the responsibilities as a member?
So the role of BESE is to work with the legislature and then the local school boards in order to together come up with a plan and strategy and implementation of shared beliefs and common goals for education, elementary, middle, and high school. I didn't catch the second part. Can you put that back up?
I certainly can. The second part of the question is, what are the responsibilities as a member?
Yeah, so as a member, we're charged with making sure that state constitution sets forth what the BESE is. 8 members elected, pre-appointed by the governor. As a member, you're in charge of setting and complying with those guidelines and what they're charged with doing, things such as setting the MFP funding, things such as setting curriculums, assigning letter grades, and criteria for how those letter grades are assigned to schools, and also for setting forth the standards and the way in which teachers are evaluated. So basically, the overarching duty is to put the children first and to do what's best for education in the state of Louisiana and to improve education in Louisiana.
Question 2, what 3 priorities will you have as a BESE member, and how will you work collaboratively with the other board members to integrate these priorities into the work of the board?
So the first priority I'll have is to expand fast forward programs. That is things such as Jumpstart, if kids want to go to college, making sure they're prepared for college. And then also if they want to go to and receive a trade or apprenticeship program. Fast forward was or has evolved from the Jumpstart program to kind of go and cover other areas too. Jumpstart was started a few years ago. It's been very successful. I think we need to put more resources into that fast forward program, and it will help all students in high school as they go into either college or an education or into the workforce. Second one would be to make sure that our children in 3rd and 8th grade, or as many of them as possible, can be on grade level when it comes to reading and math and science and just language arts and STEM programs, essentially. If you look at where Louisiana ranks in those areas and those metrics, it's consistently at the bottom. It's near about around 50% of our students are on par when it comes to English language arts and also STEM classes in 3rd grade and 8th grade. It's unacceptable. We have to put more resources there to make sure that our children are able to progress. Without the fundamentals, you're not able to have a successful Louisiana. And that's basically the goal of education, is to make sure that you can get out and you can be a functioning member of society and contribute to society. If that happens, then a lot of the other issues that Louisiana has can be solved. And then the last one is simply to make sure that our families have the resources so that simply based on a city that you live in or a zip code that you live in, within that, it shouldn't determine whether your kid is able to get a quality education. We need to make sure that our parents have the opportunity to have a say in what type of education their child has. Parents know what's best for their own children. They should have a say in that. And we as a BESE board have a duty to do that. The state legislature has a duty, and also the local school boards. So that's my 3 priorities.
What current Louisiana K-12 education programs or initiatives do you believe are working and producing results? Which programs or initiatives need to be updated or changed?
The things that are working, I touched on it a little while ago. It's the Fast Forward program. So what Fast Forward does, it takes kids that want to go to college and make sure they're prepared for it. But in addition, not everybody wants to go to college, and not everybody goes to college. We need to make sure that we have our students and our children prepared and know what's out there in case college is not for them. We need to put resources. I know BESE has a very good program where it's auto mechanic schools. If a high school student can realize, hey, I can go to school and I can get trained while in high school to be an auto mechanic or an electrician, a plumber, pipe fitter, whatever they want to do. In some of the other areas, it's things such as working in a mill or working in harvesting timber, things like that, or in farming, agriculture. If they can get certified and get the training in those areas when they're in high school, then it'll benefit the community as a whole, and it'll improve Louisiana. It'll make it attractive for other businesses and industries to come to Louisiana. And if that happens, then our kids can stop moving out of state and they can stay here and they can start families here, and Louisiana can start to move forward as a whole. But it all starts with education. The things that we need to fix or need to improve on, I can't tell you how many times through this campaign I've been told we need to re-examine how we're teaching English language arts and math and science, or math to our students. Parents are frustrated with what's going on right now. And as part of BESE, one of the things it's charged with doing is appointing people to advisory panels in order to examine those topics. Next year's English language arts. What we need to do is get some input from teachers, parents, administrators, see, okay, what is working, what is not working, how can we fix what's not working, and how can we improve on what's working.
While each BESE member represents a specific district, many of the challenges facing education are statewide problems. How do you see balancing your responsibility to your specific district and to the state as a whole?
So even within a district, what, for example, what Caddo Parish wants is different than what Bossier Parish wants. And even to take it further, what some of the rural parishes want and need is different than what a urban or more of the urban Bossier Caddo needs. So it's not just what's good for Northwest Louisiana, what's good for our district, and what's good for the other ones. It cuts down even here. We need to make sure that you can look and you can examine, and if you talk to enough people, like I've talked to people in Vernon Parish, I've talked to people in Natchitoches, Caddo, Bossier, I've talked to people throughout the district. There's a common theme here, and it's what the common theme is we want what's best for our children. Now, that theme runs throughout Louisiana. And if everybody on the board can look and sit down and say, okay, is this the best interest of the child? If we can keep that common goal and keep that at the top and say, we're doing what's best for the child, regardless of whether it is what X parish wants, what Y parish wants, if that's the goal and that's what we're working for, then overall, all those problems will work themselves out.
The current COVID pandemic has required that significant changes to the way in which instruction has been delivered around the state. Are there any COVID-related changes that you believe are effective and should be continued? Are there other changes which you believe should not?
So what it's taught us is that things we previously thought could not occur are possible. For example, technology has become a lot more integrated into classrooms. Now, we need to get our kids back into school. Our kids benefit socially from it. They benefit from not just, some kids rely on it to have food. Some of it rely on it to spot abuse or neglect, things like that. Our kids need to be in school. They do better when they're in school. But some of those technology tools, such as Zoom like this, if a kid can't come to school, for example, for a day because of they're sick or something like that, if they have the option to attend virtually, that may be something we look at. Down in DeSoto Parish, they expanded the access to Chromebooks with their CARES Act money. We can't rely solely on technology and computers, but if we can look and say, look, this is what worked. We gave kids access to computers. In this day and age, you need to know how to operate a computer. We're able to integrate some of those things into it. It's going to make everyone more prepared for when they get out of school. And also it's going to improve the way we teach. Kids learn different. Some kids can learn by playing a game, which you may not be able to do except on a computer. Some kids learn by seeing something, a visualization of a chart, something like that may be able to be shown better on a computer. Some kids learn by looking at a textbook or hearing. We need to integrate and we need to take those things, and that's done by talking to schools and seeing what did you find worked, what did you find didn't work. And if it worked, okay, is that possible to expand, or how would you want to integrate? It comes back to talking and having open dialogue with schools and school teachers and school districts.
The current COVID pandemic has highlighted both the impact that technology can have in the student learning, as well as the access disparities that can inhibit student achievement. What role, if any, do you believe BESE has in the helping to address statewide access to broadband for students and teachers?
Yeah, so we touched on this a little bit. This is why we can't rely solely on virtual learning though. There are large parts of this area, and it's not just your urban areas, it's some of the rural parishes as well. They don't have access to broadband internet yet. Now it's coming down the pipeline. Some of the public service commissioners have been talking about it, and I know Senator Mills was very instrumental in helping this, and a lot of other local representatives and senators were very instrumental in getting broadband access into some of those underserved communities. But we can't rely on it, because if it's not there right now, then we're putting our kids at a disadvantage. What BESE can do is they can work with our state elected officials and say, hey, I know you're doing this, but this is our priority. Be an advocate for the children and the students and the school boards. And you can't do it alone. We can't promise that we're going to 100% fix it. But if we have a good working relationship with other parts of the government, we can be an advocate, and we can do our best to ensure that those problems about not having broadband access to rural parishes or urban areas, whatever it is, then we can try to fix that. But until that's done, it's important that our kids are in school.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Louisiana's K-12 system, and how do you believe BESE should address it?
Biggest challenge is that a parent or parents that are working as hard as they can are not able to provide for their child the best education that they want, whether that's homeschool, private school, traditional public school, charter school. Parent needs to be able to have a choice. If a parent is working and doing everything that society tells them they're supposed to do, and they're still stuck in something that the state deems to be a failing school, that's not right. That's something that we need to fix. We need to give parents the options to do what's best for their child. And the state needs to do everything. Now, this works with BESE, this works with legislature, this works with local school boards. Everyone together needs to be doing everything we can to help parents out, to allow them to do what they feel is best for their child, whatever that is. If it means expanding or changing some of the local restrictions, or if it means changing some state laws, we need to work with local school boards and with the state legislature to make sure, the governor, to make sure that what a parent is doing, they should not have to make a choice between, am I going to be able to do X, or am I going to be able to provide a good education for my child? If our children are well educated, then the state as a whole will benefit, and the region as a whole will benefit.
This is your final question and will include your final remarks. Is there anything you would like to address that we have not yet covered?
So I got into the BESE race because when my wife and I met, we were down in Baton Rouge right out of school. My wife got a job offer in the Shreveport area. And we were talking pros and cons of moving. Do we move, or do we stay where we're comfortable? One of the shared values that we had was education. And in our discussion, we said, look, if we are staying in Baton Rouge, then our kid's going to have to go to a private school, probably, very likely. One of the main reasons why we moved back to this area is because we knew if we came back to the Shreveport, Bossier, the northwest part of the state, we had options in public education or private education. Point was, whatever we chose to do, we had the choice, and we weren't bound into doing something. That's why we came here. And I want to, if elected, improve that. I want to continue to expand those quality education options that our children have, whether that's a private school, whether that's a faith-based school, whether that's homeschool. We need to continue to do and improve education in Louisiana, because that's the only way that our state's going to move forward. Everybody talks about brain drain. Everybody talks about friends and family moving to Texas or Arkansas, Florida, California, wherever. If we can start with education, that's the foundation for everything. A well-educated population will cure and help fix a lot of the economic issues that Louisiana has. That's not going to be something easy. We're not going to see it in a 2-year turnaround or a 4-year turnaround. But we need to make that investment today into quality education. And if we do so, then in the long run, we're going to see an improvement in the quality of life of all Louisianians, and especially in the northwest part of the state.